Hey, Engraver here. Welcome back to my channel. I wanted to talk today about something that's been on my mind for a good few weeks, and that is avoid the hive mind. What do I mean by that? We all know, we're all aware that we are drawn to people we share the same values with, the same opinions. It could be political opinions, it could be social opinions, opinions on these political, social things, and also pop culture opinions, things that, people that we kind of are drawn toward as far as having the same values on entertainment and pop culture and all of that. Of course, me, I'm engaged to Professor Geek. We have the same opinions on things. I met him through YouTube, and with him and with some of his friends and people who are like-minded, it's very easy just to be drawn to these people. And, in addition to that, I've been listening more recently to political podcasts, and there's one group that I really do like, I do respect, and all around I do agree with them on a number of things. But as of late, I've been actually kind of taking a step back and watching fewer and fewer episodes. There was one recent episode where they were talking about a historical American figure, a luminary of sorts, and they started, well, I'll just say who it was. It was Martin Luther King Jr., as of course we recently had the holiday. And these guys are from England, and they had a different take on the figure. And I would say they were making some very controversial arguments. Now, I will say, I don't know if those arguments are right or wrong. I don't know if they're inaccurate. I don't know if they're correct. And I will say, I will give them the benefit of the doubt, even if they are correct in their position on this figure, Martin Luther King Jr., I would say the way they presented their argument was very insincere, or if not, maybe it was unwittingly insincere, but it just wasn't done right. Basically, they were contextualizing the time of Dr. King with modern day sentiment on racial tension. And this isn't a political channel. I just kind of want to talk about just this one subject and my main subject, avoiding the hive mind. So basically, they were using modern day colloquialism and modern day sentiment to make an argument, to make a point and a position against Martin Luther King Jr. Now, they could be right on their position. I don't know. They were accusing him of different things. But even so, I really wasn't believing them because they were using the modern day vernacular. You cannot use modern day sentiment on something political to recontextualize something that happened in the 1960s. You can't view, for instance, the topic of race and racial tension that we perceive today, that we experience today, in all the rhetoric and all the online nonsense that's going on, with things that have happened in the 1960s. So even if their position on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., even if their position, the commentators on this podcast, even if they're right, I would say not disingenuous, but their mode of making the argument was not a good one. You can, I just expect very not intellectual people to use modern day ideas and perspectives to contextualize what has happened in the past. And so these guys, these podcasts, this podcast, these people, they are more or less conservative, maybe with some libertarian streaks and stuff like that. And I share a lot of their values on different things as a conservative. And these guys actually aren't Christian. I think by and large they're irreligious, but as a Christian, I still view and hold the same opinions as they hold their opinions on things like traditional family structure and all of that. So that is a little political. I'm showing you kind of my politics there, but that aside, their way to make an argument against something was inaccurate at the very least in this instance. And it got me thinking, I'm like, okay, well, this is actually one of the first times I've just disagreed with how they spoke and how they were presenting an argument. And then I started to think more on their podcast, and this is not a dig at their podcast, but I started seeing the quantity of their podcast on very hyper-sensitive political things, and that's fine. They can have that. They can have that content. But I was thinking, you know what? I think I need to take a step back because I'm conservative like them, or maybe there's a little bit of that libertarian streak, and they hold traditional values like I hold, and even Christian, Judeo-Christian values that I hold, but the way they're presenting their arguments and the way it's this constant inundation of reactionary things, like things that they are reacting to, situations that they're reacting to, events that they're reacting to. I'm like, you know what? I really don't need to hear this at this quantity. I need to take a step back. I need to look at a music tutorial or something. I need to, just get out of that. Maybe I need to read some fiction, or I need to listen to an audio book of something else, something that is not social, that has nothing to do with pop culture, that has nothing to do with politics. And that's where I'm saying, and to you, is to be more nuanced in your thinking, more nuanced in your perspective, to pinpoint when you truly believe things are done in an accurate way, or maybe even in a disingenuous way, like someone even who holds your political opinions or your religious opinions or something like that, to hold them accountable, at least intellectually accountable, when they might be insincere about it, no, that's not presented in a good way. We need to reconsider that. So we do have the propensity, all of us, especially with the online discourse and social media, we do have the propensity of gravitating toward people who are like-minded, and then therefore causing an echo chamber. All sides of the political spectrum cause this. And if you have a very large audience like this podcast has, then the echo chamber will reverberate and all that good stuff. I said good stuff because I'm used to saying that. But I would say, you know what, even if you agree with these opinions and you hold the same values, take a step back and be just a little bit more gracious with your space. Give yourself some space, some distance, some intellectual distance from the people you agree with, as you do with people you disagree with. As a lot of us actively avoid people we would highly disagree with, especially politically or something involving the popular culture and stuff like that. But I actually, sometimes when I'm a little bored, if I'm waiting for something to happen, maybe I'm cooking and I'm not doing much activity, I'll actually look up articles written by people who have we do not have anything in common as far as our politics and our opinions are concerned. But I get a little bit of their perspective. And because I get some of their perspective, I actually start seeing patterns that a lot of people who have large audiences and do the same kind of formula, they might not be aware of. For instance, both sides, so the left side and the right side of the political spectrum and the commentary, they probably don't know it. Or maybe some of them know, maybe some of each side uses it as a weapon, using words to weaponize. But I have noticed both sides of the political spectrum use the same antagonistic colloquialism to get at the other side. I didn't know that. I thought we use these words to talk about this side of the political spectrum. No, the other side uses the same words to talk about our side and stuff like that. And it got me thinking, that's actually one reason why I do not use the colloquial. I don't use, and I think fortunately, I think it's become rather outdated, but the term that's been prevalent for years is, things like social justice warriors or SJWs, or for a couple of years it was MGTOW for some other thing and stuff. And I'm I never used those. One time I used that with my dad, and that's it. He's like, what does that mean? I'm like, yeah, I know what that means, unfortunately. But I don't use the acronyms. I don't even know what some of these urban acronyms are. And I'm very proactive in avoiding that, because I don't want my speech to be stuck in my time. The video that you're seeing right now, maybe you'll, dig up in the archives, the online archives 30, 40 years from now. And I hope my speech and the way I present myself and the way I'm speaking is still relevant, and it's understandable and it's digestible. So that's something I'm learning by taking a step back. It's every side of the spectrum, whether for entertainment or sociopolitical things or educational things, everyone has their major audience, and inside that major audience, there is an echo chamber. People are sounding the same. They're talking the same. They're throwing out the same rhetoric in high volumes. And I don't mean amplitude. I actually mean in high quantities of the same thing. It's the same output. And so I want to encourage you to be a lot more have a lot more perspective. Just be a little bit more nuanced in your perspective. Be okay to say, hey, I agree with you guys here, but the way you're presenting it, I would say you should be a little bit more responsible about that. And because actually I did a comment, I made a comment on this particular podcast with, hey, this is how you presented it. This isn't the way you contextualize history. And I got attacked for that by another audience member saying, how can you be so narrow-minded in this? Like, this is madness, and we got to stop this madness. I'm like, wait, whoa, okay. The way people thought in the 1960s involving racial tension still is not the same as we view it in the year 2023. And it's not going to be 2050. People, all of us, if we're still all living in the year 2050, we're not going to be thinking the way we're thinking right now in this decade, in the 2020s. We're just not. We're going to be thinking of different things in different ways because of how things change in the world, for better or for worse. For worse, I don't know how that phrase goes. So anyway, so avoid the hive mind. I'll wrap it up with this story too. There was one time where I was on the phone with my mom, and I was in college. I was an undergrad. And I was in music composition, and I loved the department, and I really did like the people, all my professors and the doctorate students and the master's students, and I liked engaging with them. That was my favorite part of the school week, to have that one composer's workshop, that class and that concert and stuff like that, and the discussions and all that. And then I remember, going along for a year or so, and I remember thinking, something's not right. I'm just feeling out of place. And I was talking with my mom on the phone, and she was asking me what was the deal. I said, well, I agree with a lot of this academic stuff, and I like working and experimenting with these people. But sometimes they'll go out to lunch, or sometimes they'll go to someone's home and they'll have vegan soup or something like that. And it's just not my thing. But I want it to be my thing because this is the composer's department and stuff. And she said, it kind of sounds like, the more you're describing this to me, it kind of sounds like this is a clique, whether it's with the professors or with the students of these professors. And I'm thinking, I think you're right. I think my mom was right there. It was more like a clique. The more I got to knowing that. And after that phone call, she said inside the phone call, she said, don't be afraid to just be yourself. And if you don't feel like you belong, that's fine. Like, you don't feel like you have to be a part of a clique if that's just not your thing. And I got off the phone feeling freer. I think it's like, yeah, I like these people. I like these professors, but I can be my own person. And I can even be a lone wolf in this case. Like, I don't mind. Like, I could be unique in that regard. And from there, I thought, yeah, even with people I like, or people with, people I agree with, I would say, what, it's okay to think for yourself. Really do think for yourself. Avoid the hive mind when you're constantly inundated with a lot of rhetoric involving the things that you listen to, the podcasts, the YouTube channels, and all of that. Just think to yourself, okay, do I really need to hear this? I've heard it so many times. Is it a person reacting to it? Is it a person solving a problem? Or are they just complaining? If they're complaining, do I need to hear it 5 times a day, 5 times a week? And really give yourself that allowance. Like, what? I can use my time and my attention for something else to avoid that clique. Being involved in an intellectual clique that might actually not be that healthy. So I still watch this podcast, but I actually watch fewer episodes now. In fact, I avoid certain commentators, not because I dislike them, but because I know where they're going with their presentation and with their arguments, I'm like, you know what? I don't really need it. I'll listen to certain people, especially when they're talking about philosophy or economics or history or something like that. But when they're talking about a reaction to an event, like a political event, I can see the thumbnail and I'll know what it's about, and I can turn to something else. So do your best. Don't be a bee in the hive, this intellectual drone. Really think for yourself, and I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found that insightful. And until I see you next, keep producing and preserving that good art that you love, and I will catch you later. Thanks.